Hey there, my name's Alex and welcome back to my back garden in Bristol. Look at these. Whoa, they're looking amazing. In fact, so much has been happening over the past few months. I've now finally got to my allotment patch, and also quite a lot is happening behind me here, including tomatoes, chillies, potatoes, peas, strawberries, all sorts. Right now it's midsummer, so let's jump back a few months to see all the things that have been happening. It's the 17th of April and I am not too happy at the moment because the slugs are back. They're actually not back. They didn't go away in the first place. They've always been around. But they are really causing me problems now in the garden. The peas that I planted that I thought were going pretty strong have now been found by the slugs, and one of the 7 groups of pea plants that I planted has completely been eaten. The beetroot that I planted has also been eaten quite a lot by slugs. Everything in the garden which isn't in a container is being eaten by slugs. So I've got a bag here with a few things that will hopefully take care of this problem. I have a bucket, a pair of tongs that I picked up from the hardware store the other day. These are going to be slug tongs. Got myself an Energizer head torch, a nice big pack of salt. This has multiple purposes. I can obviously use it in my cooking, but I can also use it to kill slugs. They are all going to hopefully aid in lowering the slug population in the garden. 15 quid. What? That'd be a good one. 3 AAA batteries. There we go. Oh, it's got 3 settings. That's cool. Just before I'm about to go to bed, I put on a headlamp. I take my tongs and take the lid off my bucket. Actually, I've got a window here which leads out onto the street, and people are looking at me odd. So the copper tape is used to surround the plant beds. I learnt that copper causes a little electric shock when the slug passes over it. Obviously that won't be fun for the slug, so it's meant to stop them from passing the barrier. Well, there's now copper tape around the whole perimeter of the raised beds. Also, just to add insult to the wound, look what we got here. Nice delivery from something last night. And then a slug right next to it. And then my marigold plant has just been eaten. Before my first night shift slug catching session this evening, I'm just going to show you where the slugs are hiding, because it's quite interesting. They hide under things in the day, and then at night they come out and then eat things. So slugs will normally hide underneath things like this. Yeah, there we go. There's quite a few different animals. You've got the wood lice, and then, whoa, look at that. And then there's a slug sleeping there. Also, I have seen snails. They live on this tree. Yeah, there's one. Snail just hiding on the inside of the tree in the shade. I don't even know what this is, but it is a prime slug house. See all those snails in there? All hiding in a little clay tube. And there will be slugs and snails hiding under every single one of these things, and at the base of every single bush. But hopefully tonight they'll come out of their hiding place, start eating my peas, and then I'll catch them. That's the plan anyway. This is gonna be my life for the next few weeks, I think. Honestly, they're everywhere. I've just picked up about 12. I will say though, having a pair of tongs is so handy for this. You do not want to touch a slug with your bare fingers because they are really sticky and slimy. In case you were wondering, the slugs were going into a bucket of salt water, which isn't nice and it does kill them, but it's better than slug killer as it won't be harmful to predators that might then eat the slugs. They'll just be already well seasoned. Well, that's already 64 slugs and snails in my bucket. This might look brutal, I agree. It's not what I want to do. I don't want to harm any slugs and snails. They're an important animal. They are decomposers. They take leaves and dead dying matter and they eat it and help with the decomposition process. But I think our garden is slightly unbalanced. Like there's definitely more slugs than we need, which is why I'm trying to get rid of them. I'm gonna continue my nighttime slug shift. I'll keep you posted with how my dealings with the slugs go. I've got well over 100 now. I've been out here for about 25 minutes and I'm probably gonna keep on going until I don't see any more. I've got to be pretty strict with my slug and snail catching because otherwise I'm not gonna have any nice vegetables to eat. I don't think slugs like eating tomatoes. Haven't seen any slugs on my tomato plants, which is good. And that reminds me actually, tonight there's going to be a frost, so I'm going to take them inside. I'll pop them in the kitchen just for the night and then tomorrow I'll put them back outside. It's kind of cool, since I've been hardening these tomatoes off, they're so much stronger. I can shake them and they stay upright. If I'd done that a few days ago, or last week, they probably would have fallen over. That is slug catching done. I must have found over 150 slugs. Let's say I find 100 every night. In 10 days we'll have 1,000 slugs. Surely there can't be that many in the garden. We're gonna find out, I guess. I feel like I'm really putting in the effort though. And if I'm not rewarded, then I'm gonna be very frustrated. Anyway, it's late. Good night. Well, it's another rainy day here in the southwest of England, but luckily I got a nice warm hooded jumper. And also, look what I just found. I should have really known that I had this, because a couple of years ago, or no, maybe it was last year. Yeah, last spring, I grew mushrooms in my bedroom, and I used this portable greenhouse as a enclosure for the mushrooms, because I needed a high humidity environment for them. And I don't know why I haven't used it for my tomatoes and chilies and basil. Let's get this set up. That's the frame that I've built. You can pick these up online for about 30, 40 pounds. And it's super easy to move around. So I reckon if you're in a rented house or you need it to be portable for whatever reason, you can just get one of these and then move it wherever you go. I've got the racking which goes onto each of the levels, and then we've got the cover for it. And there we have a greenhouse. Now it's got to find a nice place to put it. One thing's for sure, that bedsheet isn't getting dry. I will cut back this honeysuckle a bit, because otherwise it's shading the whole thing. But there's enough space to walk past. The sun comes over like that, so it should get a decent amount of sun. It does feel a little unstable. I've got loads of salad onions germinating as well, and they will germinate much better if they're a little bit warmer. Also got some lettuces here. Some lettuces or lettuce, don't know. You might remember back on the 3rd of February this year, I helped out at the new allotment site planting some fruit trees. Here are the same fruit trees now, and they've got leaves on, and some of them have flowers. Anyway, today was a very interesting day. The allotment site is continuing to be built, and today one of the biggest jobs had to be done, and that was getting all the fresh compost onto the land. Compost is the most important thing. I'm not gonna lie, tractors are pretty cool. I want a tractor. I think this morning there were 15 trailer loads of compost. Can't remember how many tons, but thousands and thousands and thousands of tons of compost is getting put down, which will be the basis, like the starting point where people can then plant plants into. So currently at the bottom of this field are a load of piles of compost, and the job now is to spread it out into loads of different patches, which then people can grow food in. One of those patches will be mine to play around with. Anyway, I'll keep documenting the process and show you how the build of this allotment site goes. See you soon. It's the 2nd of May. It's meant to be spring-like and warm. I was talking to someone at the garden centre recently, and they said that we're about a month behind normal spring. My tulips that I planted last autumn that I put in these containers are slowly coming to the end of their life. Well, not really. The flowers will die back, and then the energy will be stored in the bulb, and then it will flower again next spring. However, I want to do something nice and summery for these containers. I was quite inspired when I was in Switzerland and Austria, and actually the Bavarian part of Germany. I think it's quite traditional there to put geraniums in window boxes outside the house, and these geraniums are sort of brightly coloured and they droop down the side of the house, and they look quite amazing. And I'm going to try something similar. I bought 2 different types of bedding plants. We got geraniums, and the flowers will look something like that. I also got a few of these are petunias, and these will do a similar thing. They'll sort of creep out of the window box and droop down, and they'll create loads of these nice funnel shaped flowers. Got some yellow ones, also got some white ones. Whoa. No, I wasn't actually that impressed with these tulips this year. I bought like a mixed pack, like a multicolored pack, and I got pretty much all purple ones. And these particular ones are these kind of large, many petaled variety, which I don't like compared to some others. I went to a National Trust garden just outside of Bristol recently, and they had some incredible tulip displays, and I noted down a few of the varieties that they use because, yeah, like I say, I don't really like these that much. On the 7th of May, I had to take care of the plants that were outgrowing the bedroom grow box. These included a number of chilli plants that I had sowed back in March. I potted them into their final containers, and I've realised that you don't actually need very big containers for chillies. They seem to grow quite well in small pots. Seeing as the weather was so good, I also decided to plant out the tomatoes into the garden. These will die in a frost, but the 2-week forecast reckoned there would be mild nights, so I risked it, and they turned out to be fine. Once the tomatoes were in the ground, I gave them a lot of water to make sure the whole bed was wet. Here's how the potatoes were currently looking, and no slug damage on the foliage, which was good. I don't actually think slugs like potatoes or tomatoes, as neither had any damage from slugs. Oh, and we just had our first flowers open from the petunias I planted a few days ago. I've just popped down to the allotment site, and it's all happening here. They're building patches. They're putting down the compost, and I'm going to check out the exact process that they use to do this, because it's quite interesting. Firstly, a couple of sheets of cardboard were laid down straight onto the grass. Then over this, a load of compost was dropped and spread out. The aim is to block out the grass and weeds and quickly create a place to plant new plants in. I think there's about 600 of these plots being built. And what's really handy is that at the end of each row of plots, there's a water trough and a tap. With the allotment patches built, I now had to think about what to do with it. I made a few designs on my own, but realised I should probably talk to my dad, who has had a lot of garden designing experience in the past. He's even won gold medals at Chelsea Flower Show. So I went over to his house and we discussed some ideas.
3 meters by 12 meters.
Yeah.
There's a danger when you do this, that you have your first idea and you draw it on there, and that becomes your only idea.
Yeah.
Because it's fixed. You can't imagine it any other way.
Yeah.
If you do it with tracing paper, like this, you can be very vague and woolly. So you can say, well, let's put a seat in that corner. We'll put something here. We'll put some bushes, fruit bushes here. You know, you can draw it all in and do various things, yeah. And then you can say, actually, I'm not sure about that. Let's get another bit of paper. Normally, with a garden, you'd be looking at what is the borrowed view. So what's in the other gardens around? Yeah. There might be an oak tree here or whatever. You've got nothing like that, have you? Because it's just an open field.
It's just loads of these.
Yeah. North, south, east, west. Yeah. So the sun travels in the morning from there, and it goes all the way around to there. What are your thoughts on what you want to do with it? You know, what, do you want to have a shed, or do you want to have a compost heap, or a water butt, or do you want to have, you know, flowers and vegetables? You know, what was your sort of vague thoughts? Do you have vague thoughts?
I'm not very decisive on what I want it to be, which is a problem.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah. I want to grow some food.
Yeah.
I want it to be somewhere I can sit that feels somewhat enclosed.
So shelter, enclosure, cosy?
Yeah, because at the moment, if you think, it's just a flat field, and I want there to be some height to give it some sort of coziness.
You look a right fruitcake sitting on a chair in the middle of a field.
Exactly, yeah.
Because it's so new and so blank, I think some upward structure immediately is a good idea. Perhaps you could use your bamboo canes and wigwams for your beans and things like that. And you could use those along the end, like that, and the end like that. If you went along there, you could go along the back side, because this is north, so the light is all coming from this side, so you don't have to worry about shading.
And I could do different climbing plants as well, like sweet peas.
Anything.
And
peas, beans, sweet peas are the obvious ones.
Most of the veg I'm going to do is annual, or I think you call it biannual, where you sow, like garlic, you sow in the end of one year and then you harvest it the next summer.
Yes.
So then I want
very temporary.
I want some pre-annual stuff. I want artichokes, which will be really tall, and I want maybe some pre-annual sunflowers, because you have some down there which I really like the look of.
You can have those. I'm going to divide the clump up. So.
Thank you. So the rough plan we came up with was based on creating bamboo pole structures which would easily be moved and changed at a short notice. These would have climbing plants growing up them like beans and peas, but also walls at either end of the patch could be made from growing taller plants like corn, tomatoes, maybe even raspberries. I basically wanted to create somewhere which was enclosed a little bit. So tall edges, tall borders around the allotment patch is kind of what I wanted to go for. In the plan, we also put a centre plant bed consisting of some large perennial plants like artichokes, rhubarb, and my dad's sunflowers. Whilst this centre bed may look a little messy, either side will be more formal rows of various kinds of vegetable crops.
The main advantage it has is that whole thing could be changed in the morning. Pull all the bamboo canes up, reconfigure them, put them in different places, do different things with them, and you can change the design overnight. So if this didn't work out quite, or after the first season you thought, you know what, actually I'd like to do this or that, you've got nothing fixed and permanent there. You can just pull the canes up, reuse them, make different things.
I like the idea that it is very movable, because like I said, I don't really know what I want it to be.
I think that's a good start.
Yeah.
You might find that you calculate how many poles you need and you work it all out, you get there and then you just do something different.
The thing is, when I was gardening in this garden, I wrote down some plans at the beginning of the year, and then the way it ended up looking was sort of nothing like that.
By the end of the year, it had transformed itself into something else.
Yeah. Thanks, Dad, for your help. Much appreciated.
Hopefully I can come and see it.
Yeah, you'll be able to see it and hopefully not be too disappointed in your son.
I'll come and critique it.
Yeah, that's what I need. Back in the garden at home, things were taking off, notably the chillies in the greenhouse and the tomato plants, which were now producing flowers. Finally, everything seemed to be growing faster than the slugs could eat it, although by this point pretty much all my pea plants had been eaten, despite my slug hunting trips every night. The flowers I planted in the containers were looking great too. They just produce so many flowers, and when they start drooping over the edge of the container, they start to look really good. Welcome to my allotment patch. This patch here is 12 meters long by 3 meters wide, which means it's 36 square meters big. This is the biggest space I've ever had the chance of growing plants in. Now, despite there being a layer of cardboard down here and then a load of compost on top, there's so many weeds. Like, the whole patch is covered in what I think is buttercups. Now, my issue is I'm not going to be around for the next couple of weeks. I've got some work to do abroad and I'm pretty busy with other stuff right now. So the first thing I need to do today is cover this patch up with some black fabric. I want to stop as many of these weeds from growing as possible so that when I do want to start planting, we have a clear space to work with. I'd also like to try and define the borders of this patch. The grass kind of needs to be cut, and I also want to dig out a little border around the outside to stop weeds from spreading from the outside inwards. So the edge of the compost where it meets the grass, I want to just cut down with the spade, and I just want to try and separate the compost from the field. And once I've got this little trench around the outside, I can then lay the fabric inside that, and then hopefully nothing will spread. So you can now see it's still very rough, but there's a more defined border now. So we've got this black fabric which will keep the sun out, and we're going to lay it down with a little overlap and then roll it out. That's well annoying, it's like a foot short. Well, there we go, job done. Black weed suppressant cover in place, so I can now go away and be in peace that no more weeds are going to grow. Unfortunately, it wasn't quite long enough, so we've got this little patch here with nothing, but that's all right, I can just weed that bit by hand. I'll catch you in a couple of weeks when I'm back from my travels, and we'll start planting some plants. It's the 24th of June, and I've been out of the country for a couple of weeks. I've been doing some filming projects abroad, and I've come back to the garden today. It's midsummer and lots has grown, but whilst I was away also some things kind of struggled. They didn't get enough water. But we're going to have a look around the garden and see what's doing what and sort out a few jobs, like cutting the tops off these tomatoes. Oh, I see a frog. Hey there, frog. How you doing? I think you're the same frog I saw in that box the other day. Hello. First thing which I'm really happy about is all the flowers. There's a bush at the back. I think it's called a hypericum. They're quite a common town and city shrub. There's just a massive bloom of yellow flowers. The pelargoniums that I put in the container are flowering now. I got 2 different varieties, so we've got some different colours. And then also my memory is so bad. What are they called? Petunias. The petunias are looking pretty good. Well, they were struggling with water, but I watered them when I got back yesterday evening, and they're coming back nicely. First thing we're going to do is trim the tops off the tomato plants. What that does is it stops the upwards growth, and then the plants put effort into the developing fruits. I've basically got a few sets of flowers appearing on the tomato plants, and if I let it grow taller, it would make more flowers, but the summer isn't necessarily long enough. And especially in this garden where it's not particularly sunny, I'm worried that the plant won't have enough time and energy to develop all the fruits and ripen them. I've got to actually try and get through this mess. What I can also do is trim off some of the lower leaves as well to create more airflow. Basically, if there's not enough airflow, then fungus is very likely to build up. It's mad how vigorous these tomato plants are, even though they haven't had particularly sunny garden to grow in. Turns out they still create these really thick stems and are even producing fruits. I'm going to cut there. So now the plant isn't going to grow any more upwards. Hopefully that flower at the top will keep growing. Snippety, snippety, snip. It's very satisfying chopping these. So now everything is a little bit more open. Wind can blow through. The fruits will be able to have a bit more sunlight. Should be good. Oh, and just here we can see we have a ripe strawberry. First strawberry of the year. There's still plenty more growing. And if I maybe feed this, I think when plants are fruiting they need plenty of potassium. So I'll feed these when I water them next, and hopefully they'll produce more and bigger fruits. Look at that, there's a little handful of them. I'll have them as a snack later. There's loads more coming through. Chillies. Wow, we've got a few to harvest here. Oh, peppers are so cool. That is a full, no, I dropped one. That is a full handful. Padron peppers. Well, after all the slug problems with the peas, we have actually finally got some peas. Like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's probably 10 or 12 pea pods. There would have been absolutely hundreds if the slugs weren't so bad. There we go, a handful of sugar snaps. Our nasturtium plant has done all right, hasn't been eaten. And it's created a beautiful orange flower. I really love these. You can eat them as well. The leaves taste like peppery, quite nice. My kale and broccoli just has not done much at all. There's a couple of plants which have survived, but certainly not thrived. So that is the state of the garden currently, nothing too exciting. But I'm learning lots of lessons. I'm learning what gets eaten by slugs, what doesn't, what grows good in this sort of shady back garden, and it's given me ideas of what I should do next year. I'm certainly more tempted to go for a fern-like garden, maybe some nice flowers by the house where it's a bit sunnier, but this part of the garden is just not ideal for vegetable growing. It doesn't really get enough sun and the slugs are way worse back here. And I realise ferns don't get eaten by slugs, so we could plant some big ferns and other interesting sort of shade-loving plants instead. Anyway, that's the garden. I'm gonna go back to the allotment and do some more work there. I removed the black fabric to realise that it didn't affect the weeds as much as I had expected. It turns out that quite a bit of light still is able to pass through the fabric. However, I'm sure it slowed down the weed growth a little. So the first thing to do was use a tool called a hoe to cut down some of the weeds where I wanted to plant. First, I planted the perennial sunflower my dad gave me. I put this in the center of the patch. This would be near the artichokes and some other flowers. And I had a selection of struggling plants that I'd been keeping in small pots in my back garden. These included calendulas with the orange flowers, also some nasturtiums and a verbena. These all went in a clump together. I'm going to try and interplant these with the artichokes. So the artichokes will grow nice and big and tall, and the flowers will stay low to the ground. I also put in a couple of rows of strawberries that I had been temporarily keeping in pots back at home. I divided them up into their separate plants, put them in the ground and gave them a good water. And just to finish off the strawberry bed, I have mulched it with some, you guessed it, straw. The mulch will firstly mean I don't need to water them as much, and also the lovely strawberries that are being made will just rest on the straw, which will dry out better and it's less likely to come in contact with the wet ground, which means they won't mold or maybe get eaten by slugs. So it's like a bed for them. It also looks a lot neater as well. Look at this though, this is the new allotment patch. There's so many people growing stuff and every single one is so unique and individual. It's all looking very young right now, but I'm sure in a couple of years this is gonna look amazing. Anyhow, signing out for another episode. I'll see you soon. Bye.